are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, an introduction to the RX3000. I'm Jess Frackleton, the manager of the product marketing team, and I'm here today with Paul Gannett, who's going to share the presentation duties with me to introduce you guys to the RX3000. All right, we're going to start off by meeting the RX3000. I'm going to talk quickly about applications, and then I'll give you a quick tour of the hardware to get you comfortable with what the product looks like. I'm going to turn it over at that point to Paul, who will do a quick tour of HoboLink, our web-based software platform that interacts with the RX3000. He'll take you through configuration navigation, some new graphing features, and also some alarm and relay improvements. We hope to have about 15 minutes at the end for questions, so please have them come into the webinar bar, and you should see those questions, and you should see us address those questions at the end. And I'll just take a short break for a minute to make sure we're all set to go. Okay, everybody. So we're actually going to start off by waking everyone up a little bit and doing a quick poll to get ourselves comfortable with our audience today. So you should see the poll pop up in just a second here. So the question is, are you using a HOBO U30 remote monitoring system already? You see we've got a few answers there for you. I'll just give it a few seconds to let everybody chime in with their responses. Looks like we've got a pretty good mix coming in so far. A little more than half of you actually are not using U30 systems today. And I'll show you the results in just a moment. Okay, looks like and I'm just going to share these results with you. So, yeah, a little more than half of you are not using our U30 today. We've got a couple of folks that have used them in the past, aren't currently using them, and even maybe one or two of you that is using a competitor's product. So that's really helpful. Thanks for taking the time to do that. That helps us just frame the rest of this presentation as we walk through some of the differences of the RX3000 from our existing product line. Okay, so here it is. Here's the RX3000, and for those of you that are comfortable and familiar with the U30, it might look a little bit the same from the outside. You'll notice an antenna on the top of the picture here. The RX3000 really is a platform that builds on the power of the U30, and what that means is that some of the features that you've loved for so long of the U30 are still in play with the RX3000. We offer 3 different models to give you a flexible choice of long-range communication options. We include an Ethernet version, a Wi-Fi version, and a 3G version for cellular communications. The RX3000 leverages our suite of plug-and-play smart sensors and includes a double weatherproof enclosure for a really robust solution in the outdoor environments. Also, we'll continue to leverage HoboLink, our web-based software platform for configuration and data management. And as I mentioned in the agenda, Paul's going to take you through some of the feature improvements that we've incorporated into HoboLink for this release. But the RX3000 actually builds on all of those advantages that you've seen before with the U30 and increases our capability by bringing more flexibility with the modules that you can build into your station. We also have improved a lot of usability in this model, and we've built up the back-end network that supports your RX3000 on the software side to really be a best-in-class, very robust solution. And we'll talk more about all of those features as we move through the presentation today. But to start off, I just wanted to remind everyone on the phone of some of the common applications that we see in the outdoor environments. Really, we span everything from climate studies to green roof monitoring, forest research, agricultural research, environmental impact studies, and coastal studies. On the indoor side of things, the platform is also a really robust solution for things like rooftop monitoring and HVAC applications, process monitoring in manufacturing environments and other applications, building energy monitoring, and indoor air quality monitoring. Oh, and it looks like we had a question on if we're recording this webinar. We are, and you will get an email link with a copy of the recording following the webinar, probably in the next day or two. The RX3000 comes in the 3 models I mentioned a couple slides ago, the Ethernet version, the Wi-Fi version, and a cellular 3G version. All of these models have a nice flat price of $899 retail. You will see on our website some of the advantages of the data plans are that they're very simple. There's just a couple of levels to choose from. Basically, if you want to log quickly, you will need to opt up to our Max plan, which is $150 a year for the Wi-Fi and Ethernet versions. Otherwise, you can go with a free plan, so the cost of that is built right into the station itself, and there are no additional annual charges. For the cellular models, we have a couple of levels of plan. We have what we call the SP806 limited plan. This is for folks that don't need the data as often as every hour or faster, and can live with data coming in every 4 hours. That plan starts at that plan is $150 per year. And then if you need your data a little bit faster, you can opt up to the $300 per year plan, which is the SP807 or 808, depending on where you're geographically deploying your station. Hopefully a nice simple choice of options for you in that portfolio. But that's not all. You can also add on to your RX3000, and I'm going to show you exactly how you do this in a couple of slides, but we have 2 modules that we've launched in conjunction with the introduction of the RX3000. Those are a 4-channel analog module and a 3-relay module. Both of those are $120, and you can install up to 2 in each RX3000 station of any combination. We also have an external power cable, which allows users to connect external power sources other than the ones that we provide, up to 17 volts, such as a car battery, for example. This is great for applications where solar power may be a concern. Okay, so taking a look inside that front cover door, I'll just give you a quick tour around the RX3000 here. First off, you'll notice a little black door on the 3G versions can be used to provide your own SIM. The data plans I described a couple slides ago include a SIM installed by us and are ready to go, but we also are allowing users the flexibility to install their own SIMs. You will need to speak to a product application specialist to do this, but it's great for folks that may have an infrastructure that they already have in place to leverage their own data plans and data rates. We also, as I mentioned, have 2 module slots in each RX3000. It comes with no modules installed, and you can opt to install either 2 of the 4-channel analog modules, or 2 of the 3-relay modules, or 1 of each. And the great thing about these is that they are user installed, so it allows you to make changes if you have different kinds of projects that you're using the equipment for. We also have the 10 built-in smart sensor ports on the bottom, and you'll see another image of this in a couple of slides. This is great for working with all of our existing plug-and-play smart sensors where there's no programming required. Here is the option, the port for powering your logger, and I'll just remind you we have that cable accessory that we offer to allow you to provide your own power source. And on the analog module, you're going to notice some pretty significant improvements. First of all, it is a 4-channel analog port. Our previous version of the U30 allowed you to install just a 2-channel version. So immediately you're getting 2 additional analog channels, and if you install 2 of these modules, you actually can connect up to 8 analog sensors to the RX3000. But not only that, we've improved the resolution, the accuracy, and increased the voltage range, so you have a much broader range of sensors that you can now connect to these analog ports. Probably the most obvious thing you're going to notice when you open the cover of an RX3000 is the LCD. And what you'll find on this LCD is a lot of features that I'll walk you through on the next slide that help you get the device set up and diagnose any problems that may be occurring when in the field. So speaking of that LCD, I'll just talk through the various areas of the LCD. First, starting in the upper left corner here, you'll immediately see that we have some information regarding the system status. A check mark in any of these areas of the LCD signifies that everything is operating fine. An exclamation point alerts you to a problem with the device or the specific sensor. The next box on the left is the connection status. Each of these icons represents how the device is connecting to the web or to a host, and will show you signal strength, as well as will flash when an active connection is happening. The next section of the LCD is for the types of sensors and modules that you have connected. And you'll notice on these we not only have the check, the exclamation point, but we also have a little alarm clock icon that will help you identify when the smart sensors or a sensor or relay connected to one of the modules is in an alarm state. On the bottom here we have the button symbols. These will show up right underneath the buttons that were located on the just beneath the LCD. And I should say it's very simple to wake up the LCD. We do turn it off when the device is running to save power, but all you have to do is hit any one of those buttons to wake it back up. Next, you'll see a section with a lot of information that helps you understand not just what firmware version you're on, but also if there is a fault or an error with the system or a sensor, it will give you fault code diagnostics. And the most commonly used fault codes are identified on the inside cover of the device, so you don't need to remember what those are or try to decipher what they are. We also use the 7-segment numeric display to tell you how many sensors are connected to the various modules when you've selected those during the configuration process. And finally, we've got a couple of sections on the upper right here that tell you the charge level on the battery, whether or not the device is actively charging with the power source connected, and how much memory is being used has been used by the device. And you'll want to definitely take a look at the logging and stopped. This tells you the active status of the device, of course. So this image is actually showing you the LCD with all possible icons lit up. It will never actually look like this other than for a brief moment when you first power up the device, but it's helpful to understand what you could see at any moment on the LCD. I've mentioned the smart sensors a couple of times. Again, those of you that have used a U30 or some of our other data loggers that leverage the smart sensors already are familiar with those, but these plug-and-play sensors allow you to get up and running with absolutely no programming required. In fact, if you're only using our smart sensors, you'll find that really the only input you need to give the device is to tell it how often you want to log data. And there are 10 smart sensor inputs here. Each one may be capable of taking more than one channel. For example, a temperature and relative humidity sensor will use 2 channels in a single port. And here's an example of some of our most common sensors that are supported. You'll find a full list on our website, or of course any of our product application specialists would be happy to walk you through this. The smart sensor selection under the first bullet, everything from wind speed and direction to pressure and solar radiation, soil moisture, and leaf wetness. With the analog sensor module installed, we support a wide range of different analog sensors, some of which we don't sell directly. You can connect anything with a 0 to 24 volt input or a 4 to 20 milliamp output. And there's just a few examples listed here on the slide: water level, CO2, flow, differential pressure. And finally, with the pulse input adapter, you can connect a range of rain or power sensors to the device. I've talked a lot about the modules. Here's another cartoon, I'll call it, of the modules prior to being installed in the device. There are 2 slots, again, to install 2 modules of any combination of these 4-channel analog or the 3 relay output module. They are secured with a single screw. It's very easy to do. And there are screw terminals used for connecting the sensors and relay connections. The analog module does feature improved 15-bit resolution and a higher accuracy for connecting a wider range of sensors. And also, you should make note of the new 33-volt range for monitoring higher DC voltages. The RX3000 is, as you saw from the application slide and especially from the picture here, is designed to be robust. It's intended to be used in environments that can be pretty harsh to operate in sometimes. So we are NEMA 4X enclosure included in every box. There's a double weatherproof enclosure, and when connecting the sensors, you'll leverage the weatherproof cable seal with a compression fit design to make sure nothing penetrates inside the electronics of the device. But robustness to us is about more than just the physical enclosure that the device is provided in. It's also about the data robustness. So we provide a range of system and sensor alarms through HoboLink, as well as network administration function that exists here and programmatically with our servers to make sure that the data that the devices are logging is kept safe and secure at all times. And we also are a data logger, so the most recent measurements are stored in the logger. In case you're in an environment where communication is spotty, you're not going to lose your data during those times when you may have lost a cellular signal or other things. So robustness is extremely important to the RX3000. And with that, I'd like to just take another moment to ask the audience here another polling question. I'll just get this served up on the screen so you can answer it. You'll see we'd just like to understand from each of you what environment you'll be using or have already used a web-based data logging system in. Are you using it inside, outside, or have you done both? Okay, great. Looks like everyone's chiming in on this. Thanks for that. We'll just give it maybe 10 more seconds or so. Large majority of you using these outside, so I'm sure leveraging our robust enclosure for that. We have found that that's appreciated in indoor environments too, where sometimes the exposure to people walking by can be just as dangerous as the outdoor elements. Okay, looks like we've leveled out here, and I'll just share the results with everyone. So most of you in the outdoor environment, but a good majority have used them in both, so probably seeing the value of the versatility of the various measurements that can be connected. Okay, great. Thanks for that. And at this point, I will be turning the presentation over to Paul, who's going to take you through a quick tour of HoboLink and some of the new features that we have available for that.
Hello, everyone. Just I want to give you a quick tour of HoboLink. For some of you, this will look familiar. For some of you, this will be new. So let's see what it looks like. Let's see. Oops. There we go. So yeah, for those of you that have been using HoboLink with the U30s, this should look pretty familiar. For those of you who haven't been using the U30s, you can see the sensor current readings are displayed over on the left. In this case, it's got relays and analog modules installed, so those would be displayed on the left as well. And then we show the current trends, either the past day, past week, or past month in the graphing area. So that's just kind of pretty similar to the way it's been. What's new is how it's configured through the internet. Most of the configuration, virtually all the configuration, is done through HoboLink now. So you do it through the HoboLink interface. So the basic initial configuration is initiated with this key up at the top, or you can click on a specific sensor if you want to go back and change the settings just on a specific sensor. So let's go in to our general configuration. That's going to bring you into this configuration screen. Over on the left part, you'll see the navigation bar, which shows you the steps in the configuration process. So starting out with general configuration, then readout configuration, then sensor configuration. You can kind of see the sequence there. So you can always skip ahead to a section if you want to skip over a section. Or you can just go through each of the steps just by hitting next to go through the different steps as shown over on the right. One of the things that's new in this version of HoboLink is that you can have a different logging rate for the smart sensors versus your analog sensors. And you can see here I've set up a 1-minute logging rate for my smart sensors and a 5-minute logging rate for my analog sensors. So this is something new to the RX3000 that it's able to support this dual logging rate structure. You can actually have 3 different logging rates because each analog sensor module can have its own logging rate. And another feature of the analog sensors is that they can have statistics, minimum, maximum, and average and standard deviation values calculated based on the subsamples that are taken, and those values will be logged. In terms of your analog sensors, this is the screen for configuring those. And you can enable whether those are graphed or not, and enable which channels are being logged. And to actually configure the sensors, there's a couple different ways you can do that. If it's a third-party sensor that has a voltage or a 4 to 20 milliamp output, you can set the scaling here. So you just basically select the range, whether you're on the 0 to 2.5 volt range or 0 to 33 volt is the new high range. So you select that here, and then you would enter the linear scaling coefficients here, as well as the new units. So you could convert from voltage values to micro Einsteins is in this example here. So you enter the linear scaling points there. If, on the other hand, it's one of the sensors that we've supported with predefined selects, you just select those from this menu here. So in this case, I've selected the Telair 7001 CO2 sensor, and so HoboLink will automatically do the correct scaling for that sensor, and no further effort is required on your part. Another area that's a little different for the RX3000 is the alarms. And one of the key things that we've added is alarm hysteresis with independent alarm trigger points for triggering the alarm and for clearing the alarm. So for example, if you were setting up a frost alarm, you could set it up to trigger when the temperature goes below 35 degrees Celsius, or Fahrenheit, I'm sorry, and then it doesn't clear until it gets above 38 degrees. And this avoids nuisance alarms at those points where it's right around the alarm threshold. And it also is important to prevent short cycling the devices. So this really helps relay control. And speaking of relay control, with the relay modules, you can now have up to 6 independently controlled relays. So you just select what relays you want to be activated by each of the alarm conditions. And as before, you still have the options of emails or text messages. So continuing with the alarms, this is actually pretty similar to how it was with the U30, the earlier version of HoboLink, but it's worth reviewing because it's an important advantage of the alarm systems that we have set up within HoboLink in our remote monitoring systems. And you can set them up so that you automatically get a notification if there's been misconnections, so that if you're waiting for a critical alarm, this way you know that there's been some misconnection, so you might have missed an alarm, so you might want to do further investigation. You can also set up notifications for low battery conditions, or if there's been a sensor failure. It sometimes happens that a sensor cable will be cut and you'll start missing some critical data potentially. Well, by setting up these system alarm notifications, you can be notified if there's any problems with the system, and this allows you to address those problems before critical data is lost. Important in a lot of applications, so you don't miss any important data. So, and actually, one other thing I want to say on system alarms before moving on is those aren't necessarily set up by default. I do recommend setting those up. It's just a good best practice to set those system alarms up so that you know of any if there's any issues out there. So another thing that's different about this is kind of tied to the LCD and HoboLink is the RX3000 has the ability to be stopped and started. This is useful when you're setting things up. You can set things up and then you start logging using these the start button down at the bottom, and then if you want to stop to do a reconfiguration, you can do that, or at the end of a deployment you can stop so you're not getting extraneous data. You can also stop and start logging remotely from HoboLink. So if you get back to the office and you want to start your system from the office, you can do that or stop it from the office. And that's done in the configuration menus. Another thing that you'll notice that's different about this version of HoboLink is that it's got more powerful graphing capability. So in a lot of cases, you won't need to export your data to another program such as HoboWare to be able to do some basic analysis of your data. So here you can see it's got these horizontal cursors that allow you to zoom in on data of interest so you can take a closer look. And then you can hover over with your pointer over a point on the graph, and it will give you the reading at that point and the time at that point, so you can know when those critical conditions happened. And a part of this version of HoboLink that's quite different actually is a new database structure. All the data is being stored into a database for your device, and you can select exactly the data that you want. So for example, you can select the date range that you want. It's got little drop-down calendars, and you can select the start and the end points that you want, up to, I think, up to 6 months at a time of data can be extracted. And then you can select exactly which sensors you want as the particular export. So that way you're seeing exactly the data you want, and you can access this data at any time via HoboLink. HoboLink also provides some very powerful data sharing options. We've got the public access page that you can share a link with other users, or post on a web page, so anybody can see the data from your stations by clicking on that link. We also have a push service for sending the data to Weather Underground, so you can see the data as part of a Weather Underground map, or take advantage of some of the nice display capabilities of Weather Underground. You can also set up automatic data delivery. I showed you on the previous screen how you can select custom date ranges for exporting data. You can set up a schedule of delivery so that every week, for example, it sends you all the new data that occurred over the last week, and you can automatically send that to another website where you can pick that data up and use it in other programs or store the data. It also has web service capabilities for those of you who want to get into more advanced web programming capabilities. You can automate the receiving of that data, and so you can programmatically deal with your RX3000 data. So a lot of options there for sharing data. We also have some activity logs for connections, configuration changes, and alarms. And this is just an easy way of getting some information that might help in troubleshooting or seeing when alarm conditions. So for example, here you can see when the last alarm condition occurred. And you can also filter that data different ways so that you can kind of look for, when the last error condition occurred, and that's again helpful in troubleshooting. So that brings us up to another polling question. Why don't I start that up and see how this goes? Let's see. You can be thinking about your answers while I'm pulling this up. So, poll is in progress. All right. So you can think about how you look at your HoboLink data today. Interesting, but not surprising. I'll give you a couple, maybe another 10 seconds or so. Let's see, it looks like it's stabilized. A couple more answers. We'll close that. And yep, here you see the results. And you can see that very similar to what we find with our HoboWare software. Most folks are doing their analysis in programs like Excel or similar spreadsheet programs. It's just those, those are common user tools. So interesting. Some folks are using more specialized analytical programs like MATLAB, or hearing a growing use of those programs. And then some of you are just using the capabilities within HoboLink. 10% of you are what I'd call power users. You're pushing your data to other web platforms. That's great. That's a way you can really integrate a more complete solution. So that's important. And I see just a few aren't using web-based data loggers yet, but obviously you're attending this webinar, so you're thinking about it for the future. So good. So at this point, maybe I'll turn it back over to Jess. Here she is.
Great, and that was our final poll for you, so no more hard work on your part. And that really wraps up our tour of the RX3000. This was just a brief introduction to all the capabilities, so we wanted to throw out some resources to help you figure out how to learn more. You can visit the product page itself at our main website, onsetcomp.com, with the /RX. And from there, you'll see where you're able to download product manuals. You can watch a little video featuring yours truly, highlighting, showing the product in real life, so to speak. There's some HoboLink demonstrations out there, and we'll be updating even more of those as time goes on. You can view and print the data sheet and learn more about the compatible sensors and find out a little bit more about what accessories you can add, including tripods and other things. And then I really encourage everyone to check out our new online configurator. It helps you build your own system, really arm yourself with any further questions you might have, and what the pricing will look like for an entirely configured system, including sensors and data plans and all the accessories that you might need. So check that out, all at onsetcomp.com. And of course, feel free to call us anytime to speak to a product application specialist. 1-800-LOGGERS is the cute little phone number that you can keep in your mind to give us a call. And on the next slide here, you'll see we have my email address as well as Paul's. We're happy to answer any questions you have about the webinar or the RX3000 in general. Our product application specialists, however, are armed to be as dangerous as Paul and I, and ready to take your call at any time. So we're giving the not so cute phone number there, the 1-800-564-4377, as well as their email address, and you can chat live with them from our website during normal business hours, and our tech support team contact information there, as well as social media. Follow us on all those various social media outlets if you have a chance. So that wraps up our formal presentation portion of the webinar. I hope that was informative for everyone. And from here, we're going to check out what kinds of questions have come in while we've been busy talking. And if you have any questions, definitely feel free to go ahead and shoot them off to us right now. And we'll get to a few of these before we have to wrap up and send you on your way for the rest of the afternoon or evening, whichever it is for you.
First one there. So I'll take the first question, and I'm just going to kind of go in order, just so we can hopefully get through them. The first question was relative to the analog inputs. Are those, if you're using the 4 to 20 milliamp input mode, is that a 2 or a 3-wire connection? You can really wire it up either way. If you want to use the power of the RX3000 to power the 4 to 20 milliamp, you can do that. It's got capacity for up to 200 milliamps of power total analog input module, so it can power 4 to 20 milliamp sensors very easily. And so it can do that, or if you've got a loop that's already got its own power, you can just tie into that with 2 wires as well and just monitor the milliamp current.
Yeah, a question also came in about whether or not you can adjust the logging interval for each sensor. I'm not sure, this question may have been asked before. Paul went over a couple of screens, but what you probably saw is that you can actually log the smart sensors at a logging interval different from the analog sensors that may be connected. So those you can adjust logging intervals specific for those 2 sensor groupings. However, you can't actually log at different rates for from one smart sensor to another or from one analog sensor to another. Those have to be set at a standard logging rate.
I'll take the next one. Yeah, the next question was about exporting data to Excel or other programs other than HoboWare, and yeah, we touched on that a little bit, but maybe I can expand on that. HoboLink does include the capability to set up export files in many different formats. CS format, I think it supports XLS formats as well, and you can set up the date formats. There's a fair amount of flexibility in that to match the program that you want to export the data to, and then of course once you get it into it, even adjust the format further. But yeah, you'll find it pretty straightforward for exporting the data to other programs.
And I'm pretty sure we have a video on our website that walks you through the entire setup of data export and the various options, so check that out as well. Yes, there's a question about whether or not you can configure the RX3000 without an internet connection. In other words, if you're in the field, do we require an Ethernet Wi-Fi or cellular signal on the device that is configuring the station? The answer to that is mostly, I guess. So there are certain things leveraging the LCD that you can do. As you saw, you can stop the logger, add a sensor, and restart it without needing an internet connection to do any of that. You can do that all right from the station itself. But for things like changing the logging interval or setting up an alarm or setting up the data delivery, configuring an analog sensor with scaling, those you would be required to go through HoboLink with an internet connection, either internet-enabled laptop in the field or a mobile device, or you can reserve that activity for when you're back at the office and do it from there. Is that a good answer, Paul?
Yep.
Yeah.
You explained that well. There's a question here relative to can the RX3000 be used without the HoboLink backend? The answer is the data always has to go through HoboLink. That's how the RX3000 is set to deliver the data. It always sends the data to the HoboLink website. But you can very easily set up the HoboLink backend to forward that data to your own FTP site or email it to you, or you can access the data with web services. So the data is very accessible from HoboLink and a lot of flexibility in how you get the data through HoboLink. But it does have to go through HoboLink at this time.
And yeah, a great question. Someone asked, is the new station already being sent to our European retailers? And the answer is yes, absolutely. They have access and have been trained and also are armed and ready to answer your questions. You can see a full list of our distribution partners, including those in the U.S., on our website. So definitely check there for the nearest distributor to you.
Here's a question about, is the web version you presented only for the RX3000 or is also for the U30? And for the most part, setting up the U30 and the RX3000 through HoboLink is the same. You know, like the configuration is the same. But there are some hardware differences between the two products. So that's where HoboLink will necessarily differ. You know, for example, the analog port on the U30 has to be configured through HoboWare in advance. There's no way to, it's just not set up hardware-wise to be able to be remotely configured through HoboLink. So setting up the analog port will be different between the RX3000 and the U30. And I think in general you'll find it's easier on the RX3000 approach. But you'll see a lot that's the same between them. The graphing will be different between them just because of how the data is set up. That they might merge in time, but right now they're slightly different.
Okay, and someone asked about that $899 price that I showed on one of the early slides and what that includes. That does include just the station itself, so any accessories or sensors, including the solar panels, would need to be purchased separately, and you can do that again through our online configurator. The battery is included, the battery that powers it. You just need a recharging mechanism to keep the device up and running.
There's a question on the power that the relays can handle. I think they're rated for 1 amp up to, I forget, 30 volts or something like that. It's, you know, they're relatively low power relays, you know, that can be used to switch higher power devices. They're certainly not rated for AC power or anything like that. So they're low power relays, but can be used to switch higher power relays.
Okay, sorry, we've got a bunch of great comments, and some of these questions that are a little more specific we can definitely address directly with those of you that are asking. Okay, the question about the new cell provider. So we actually have a couple of options, and you can see the details on our website, but we do primarily in the U.S. use AT&T. If your coverage is outside the U.S. And you need more information than the country listing that's on our website, feel free to give our application specialist a call and they'll help answer that. We have a global option that works on AT&T and T-Mobile in the U.S. through roaming agreements. So you want to pay attention to that as well. You know, sort of along that line, I see a question about South American coverage, and we do have coverage in many, if not all, South American countries. So again, you can find a full list of the countries covered by our global data plans on our website, or speak to an application specialist, and they'll help you figure that out.
I see a question here on the measuring interval. The fastest measuring interval that we can support right now for the is 1 minute for the cellular plans, and I guess we can go down to 1 second for the Ethernet and Wi-Fi plan. So you can log very fast, basically turning on the fire hose of data if you want, and you can use the sampling and the statistics features to maybe reduce some of that data if you want to set up a faster sampling rate but only log min-max averages. You can do that for the analog sensor port.
Yes, there was a question also about using USB to download the data, and we will have a tool available to do that. That's not considered the normal operation. This is a remote monitoring system, so the expectation is that most of the uptime you have a connection to the internet. But as a fail-safe, there will be a process to be able to extract the data should you come into a situation where you really can't get a connection back to the internet. If that's a common practice, we're going to continue to manufacture and support the U30 NRC version. That is a standard data logger in that it has no connection to the internet, and you should certainly check that option out for those of you that getting web-based access to your data is less important for.
There's a question here on cable lengths, and there's a range of cable lengths available. Most of them have cables in the range of 2 to 5 meters as their standard cable length. We also offer extension cables of, I think they're 2 meters, I forget the exact lengths, up to 10 meters, or I'm sorry for that, up to 25 meters in length. So there's a lot of flexibility. Those can be chained together to create the cable length you need, and there's a weatherproof connection housing that ensures a good weatherproof connection for those connections. And there's a total limit of 100 meters of smart sensor cable length. So you do have to be a little bit careful not to add too much cable there, but that's probably a good field practice anyway. So a fair amount of flexibility. And of course, when you get into configuring a specific system, give us a call. We'll help to make sure you're within our cable length limits. Yeah, there's a question on the range for the Wi-Fi model, and it's typical for your other Wi-Fi devices. So if you can take your notebook computer out into a location and you're able to communicate with your router, then your RX3000 Wi-Fi unit should be able to communicate from there as well. It's it's pretty typical. There's obviously options out there for extending the range of your Wi-Fi router, and you can connect those to your router, and those are usually like directional antennas that you can point towards your RX3000 that's out in the field. It seems like there's more and more options for longer range Wi-Fi, and again, as long as you can get Wi-Fi out to where the RX3000 is going to be, it should be able to communicate back through your Wi-Fi to your network that way.
I think we had one good question about the extreme weather conditions, but I'll let you answer that one, Paul. Here?
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Yeah, yep. Yeah, extreme weather conditions, as Jess mentioned, the RX3000, we've taken great pains to really make the enclosure really robust. We've got that double weatherproof enclosure, so it keeps any of the rain, humidity, and ice out. But at the same time, there's I should mention the temperature range too. It's rated from -40 degrees Celsius up to, I think, 70 degrees, or maybe it's 60 degrees. Double check the specifications. I don't want to mislead anybody, but it's certainly specified over a pretty wide temperature range. And so as long as you're within those temperature ranges, it should operate just fine. Lightning is always a wild card. Especially with long cables, you want to be a little careful with that, maybe burying the cables. If it does go into an error condition, it's possible it will generate a sensor error, and that's where setting up those alarm notifications is a good idea, so that if there is some sort of system issue, in most cases it will recover from it, but in cases that it doesn't, you'll be able to know about it because you're able to monitor your system through the internet, and you can go out and address it and fix the problem. There's a question here on, is there a low-pressure switch sensor available that can be used to log when my irrigation system is on or off, less than 50 psi? We have a pressure sensor that a lot of users have connected to our U30s in the past, and it will connect just fine to the analog port on the RX3000. And it's I think there's different ranges. I think it's 100 psi range, but that should be fine for an irrigation system that's in the 50 psi range. And there you can not only verify whether your irrigation system's on or off, but you can make sure that it's maintaining a good pressure level. And we've also had some users put those pressure sensors on either side of a filter, so that when the filter is causing an excess pressure drop, that's an indication that the filter needs to be cleaned and serviced. So it's another useful application for monitoring the pressure in an irrigation system. So yeah, that's a pretty powerful advantage.
Looks like we've exhausted your list of questions for now. Hopefully you're able to spend some time and check out the resources on our website and have more great questions for our product application specialists. Please take advantage of them. They're great. And you have Paul and my contact information as well if you have any other questions. So thank you, everyone, for your time today, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon. Bye-bye.